Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Happy opening day to all of those that celebrate, which I hope is most of you. I hope you are now sitting at your home enjoying a Braves W. We obviously record this show before that, so I can't tell you. I'm rocking the Braves jacket. I got the Ozzie chain jersey or Ozzie chain t-shirt on. I'm all ready, but I can tell you I do not know the outcome of the game. So if I look like a total loser up here because we just got blown out by the Phillies, I apologize. But we're going to start off the show with some Braves talk. And one of the things that came out of spring training very early in spring training was Ronald Acuña coming out and saying, hey, I want to be an Atlanta Brave for life. Now, Alex Anthopoulos was recently on 92.9 The Games, Dukes and Bell, and he basically he did his coach speak thing. He said, of course, we would like to have those guys. He said that about Max Fried, Dansby Swanson, and Freddie Freeman as well. So I don't take too much into this. But the reason I wanted to discuss this topic, Alex, is because of Ronald Acuña's recent Players Tribune article that he wrote, where he gave the insight of who he is as a person, and he even said, money's not a big thing. And I know the national media has tried to create this narrative that Ronald Acuña is going to force his way out because he hates the Braves. Well, that's obviously been nixed completely because he's been nothing but grateful. And now you get this article. He certainly seems like he fits in the mold of the Michael Harrises, the Spencer Striders, the Austin Rileys, the Matt Olsons, the Sean Murphys, who haven't really held Alex Anthopoulos' feet to the fire rather than the Max Frieds and the Dan. He certainly seems like he falls into that category. Ozzie-Albies as well.
Well, I think, each case is obviously individual and very different to other cases where, like, Matt Olson spent his career in Oakland, and when he got a taste of Atlanta, he was like, yeah, I don't want to leave ever. Austin Riley family is in Mississippi where, Ronald Acuña and Ozzie came up together through Atlanta where it's like, Max Fried, he's got that California roots. Freddie was, somebody that we all thought would be a Brave for life. California guy as well. So I think, and Dansby, again, Dansby shouldn't be in those conversations because the Cubs paid way more than the Braves were even not even in the same ballpark, different sports really. And so I think, if you want to look at Ronald Acuña and Ozzie, they're a little bit in the same category where, they're foreign guys, international guys who came up through the system together. They might not necessarily be all about their dollars and cents where they're like, I'm comfortable here in Atlanta. I don't want to be anywhere else. And if you're Alex Anthopoulos and Braves fans in general, that's got to be music to your ears when you hear Ronald Acuña say, I want to be a Brave for life. Obviously, at the negotiating tables, anything can happen. And the longer, Alex Anthopoulos kind of weighs the possibility of an extension, it's going to get more expensive. And, obviously that's barring injuries. But if Ronald Acuña turns in another 50-50 year, the price tag just went up.
Yeah, I mean, the closer he gets to free agency, the more likely.
And the same for Ozzie. That
temptation kind of rises to you. Oh, I'm only 3 years away. What could I get on the open market? But I do think the Players Tribune and everything we've heard from Ronald is positive when you look at him potentially being a Brave for life. The other aspect I think you have to think about it, and this is from both the Braves and Ronald Acuña, is the injury aspect. Like the security that he gets by locking up a long-term deal with the Braves is significant. This is a guy that has been injury prone throughout his entire career. He's had the ACL. He's had numerous other injuries. He's only had like 2 seasons over his entire 6-7 year career, whatever it is, where he's played a full allotment games or close to it. So there's injury risk there, and that's on the Braves end, and that's on the Ronald Acuña end. Acuña, you get your security. Now the Braves, do they want to, when they have him under contract for 5 more seasons, do they want to go out there and give him $300 million on top of it? Because maybe, they are a little hesitant because what if something else pops up? What if he does have a lot of injury years over the next 5 years? So there's risk in it. And that's why I always think it's laughable when people are like, oh, you're taking advantage of this player. Ronald Acuña, yes, the best.
It's hilarious to give somebody an 8-figure contract and say, you're taking advantage
after
of them.
6 months of baseball, which is what the first contract was. Quite literally, the guy had
crazy.
Literally played about half a season of baseball, and the Braves handed him $100 million. Yes, it panned out. But listen, as I've said, would Michael Soroka have not liked a 6-figure contract after he nearly won the Cy Young as a rookie? Yes, that one wouldn't have panned out. Yes, the Braves didn't give him. I bet you they did, though. I bet you, knowing Alex Anthopoulos, seeing Michael Harris, seeing Spencer Strider, you think there was not an offer on the table for Michael Soroka? I could have seen it. It might not have been $80, $90 million, especially back in 2020, but Could have been $50 million.
Well, everybody, just because it works out for the Braves, people just assume that it works out for everyone, and that's just not the case. Like, imagine had they given Jason Hayward a big old contract, maybe it wouldn't have looked as good today. And at the time, Bryce Harper, like, contracts age, and they never look the same. I like to look at Bryce Harper's contract. You say it all the time. It's a bargain now. But when he signed it, everybody was like, until his age 30-something season. Wow, now he's a bargain. Like, everybody, when we initially look at contracts, they always either look completely terrible or there's like, oh, that's a crazy deal. And they end up somewhere in the middle, like everything in life, especially in sports. And, it's difficult for regular people to kind of, I guess, comprehend the risk associated when all you see is success, because somehow again, it's still early in some of these extensions. Every single extension has worked out in the Braves' favor. So everybody just assumes that there's no risk involved, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Harper, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it was backloaded or front loaded, but if you go look at his contract, either today he's getting paid $24 million and he has been over the last 7 years, or over the next 7 years of a career, he's getting paid $24 million by the Philadelphia Phillies. That's
taking advantage of.
Yeah. I mean, but seriously, yeah. I mean, there's risk in all of these contracts. They all look different, but I do think, as Braves fans, you got to feel super confident about getting both these guys back, because it just seems like legacy and being in a place where they're happy. Like, these are guys that go back to their home countries for most of the summer. They come from humble of the humblest beginnings. And I think that's important in these negotiations. And I think it's going to be key to the Braves keeping these guys long term. They already have them long term, but long term. Yeah.
And I think, in addition to Ronald Acuña, like, Ozzie-Albies plays a factor in all of this, and vice versa, where, like, they're clearly best friends on the field and off the field, where, like, obviously they're their own people. They're going to make their own decisions. They're grown men. But it just feels like, if you're a Braves fan, that there's something special in this organization with those two guys leading this team. Like you said, if you're a Braves fan, if you're Alex Anthopoulos, you got to love your chances.
Well, these guys grow up. Ronald Acuña.
They grew up together.
Yeah, I mean, but they grow up, and you're talking about this, and you go read that Players Tribune.
This is where it's coming from, Players Tribune.
Ronald Acuña, he is literally talking about, and yes, he was 16, 17 years old, but he's writing this article at 26, and he's talking about the depression he faced in the ACL, the kind of depression, I don't want to call it depression because he didn't call it that, but, the sadness that he felt when he left his family, left his friends, left his hometown. I mean, yes, Ozzie-Albies certainly plays a factor.
It's like his dad, his older brother, his mentor. Ozzie took care of him.
Those relationships certainly play a factor in all of this, and they're going to play a factor. So yes, in a lot of ways, I do think it's a package deal, and for the Braves, that's a good thing.
Yep,
that's a good thing because. But I will say, and
you want both of them.
I started off at the beginning of the segment. I think this has a lot more of the feeling around the guys that stayed, rather than the guys that didn't.
Yeah, definitely. Like, this feels way different. And again, I want to go back. These are completely different situations. Every single free agent that we have talked about, they're all completely different situations. Obviously, Max Fried is in the final year of his contract, but, like, the writing is on the wall. Like, everybody knew Dansby was gone. Everybody kind of knows Max Fried's gone. If you still have a little bit of hope, good for you, but it just feels different with Ronald and Ozzie. It really does.
I'm one of those guys that still has hope, but we won't talk about that today. Yeah. We will talk about Adam Duvall and Jared Kelenic, who'll be platooning in left field.